Miguel Hernandez is an early 20th century Spanish poet, and he was eventually imprisoned and he died in prison. But he was good friends with Pablo Neruda, Garcia Lorca, and the whole range of poets in Spain at that time. But he was a shepherd at first, and he moved up into the city to develop his poetry. I believe my professor Eric Pankey recommended him to me after he started reading some of my early poetry when I first got into my MFA program. And so I went and read him and fell in love with just sort of the rawness of his language, specifically his last book, which he wrote in prison while he was dying of tuberculosis. Not having done opera before, not having written a libretto, you, Dan, came to me looking for possible stories, and his story, Miguel Hernandez's life narrative, that final piece where he's in prison and he finds out that he has a child, always came to me as being essentially human, because obviously it's very dramatic and it's a kind of an extreme moment, but there's such a core of elemental human emotion that's occurring: love, regret, despair, and also hope. And I thought that was vital to the possibility of writing an opera. The opera begins with Miguel having already run from his captors, but he returns to his hometown, to Josefina. And the problem with this is they're searching for him, and they're killing all the major people who were involved in the war against their regime. They kill Garcia Lorca at the very beginning, and Miguel returns home to his young wife, and she beseeches him to run away, to leave, because she doesn't want him to die. And then it progresses from there, where he is captured. After a night of lovemaking with Josefina, and the play between them occurs mostly in letters, while Miguel's in jail and Josefina's at home, and to try to capture their desperation of their relationship, particularly because Josefina finds out she's pregnant and she needs to communicate that to Miguel, and how to convey what is going to be both a joyful moment and the exasperation of the eventual loss that will occur because she's going to lose Miguel to death. And Miguel at the very end recognizes this, and what happens with that. The Autumn Orchard, in many ways, when you get an orchard, you have this concept of blooming, of fruit, of new birth, of new life. And then with autumn, there's that contrasting notion where there is death, there is passing. In the autumn orchard, this immense field where both things can occur at once. It's an all-day process. I get up in the morning, drink a cup of coffee, go to a coffee shop, I drink coffee at home, then I go to a coffee shop, drink more coffee, and read a ton of poetry, read fiction, philosophy. Then at some point in the afternoon I head home and just turn on some really loud music and let whatever feelings I've had or thoughts that I've had come out unedited, with no restraint. And then from there comes the process of formal construction, which takes weeks to months. For one poem it took years. For this, it's been a bit easier in the sense that it's been a collaborative process, and you, the composer, helped me edit the stuff that isn't going to work. If the libretto ends up being only 9 pages, what I have written and what I've shown you, Dan, probably amounts to 50, 60 pages, something like that. And a lot of that is in first drafts that I end up cutting and it boils down. I may write 2 pages, and you don't even see this. I may write 2 pages of stuff, and I only keep 2 lines, and then I go further from that. And so, yeah, probably 50, 60 pages of work that I've worked on, but only 9 is usable. So, and I don't mind that, because I spent weeks and weeks on one poem only to discover that it was worthless, and so I had to cut it. The hardest part about working on a libretto has been trying to be authentic to the emotions that both Miguel and Josephina would have. Being male, I have no idea how a woman might feel in having a child and then losing a husband, but I know what loss feels like, and trying to capture that and to find something elemental to me, but also to the audience that will eventually be hearing this. And in many ways, that burden has been lifted because there's going to be music accompanying the words. Really, the words are accompanying the music, and that the music, in its ethereal nature, will be able to contain, communicate, and elevate that intention to a very high degree. It has changed my process of poetry. Well, it's hard to tell right now. I'm going on this artist retreat, and the way I've written for the opera has sort of been this month gearing me up toward writing intensely. So maybe the colloquial nature of the lyricism, which is something I usually don't write like. I usually write a bit more abstractly with a bit more of experimental forms in mind. But I really enjoyed the kind of looseness and the risk of sentimentality that this form brought to it, lyrically. So, but the idea also that the words are going to be sung and to always give the language over not to semantic meaning, but to musical intonation. And that elevates the reception.